All right. What's up, everybody? Hopefully, you didn't hear the first part of that. Otherwise, you would have thought of CNN. But outside of that, we have man. It's never a dull week. I know Joe and I had the blessing of chatting with some of the engineers from Tesla this past week on the Model Y Juniper and get their first look. Again, it's on YouTube or on X, so make sure you check that out. But shout out to Joe thank you so much for putting this amazing deck every week together. And welcome our regular special co-host, Brian FutureAza. How are you doing, Brian?
Doing great. We try to cover the news, but some weeks, boy, there's just no news, is there?
Yeah.
I'm told maybe someday, but not this week.
There's never a dull moment right now. Hans actually had some family things he had, so we thought of a couple of great people we could bring in. And I know Penny, or I just stole the thunder. We might as well just add him in. So, Penny, what's going on?
What's up, John? What's up, boys?
So, Penny, I'm going to talk a little bit about him, and then he'll talk a little bit about himself. But Penny had actually been anonymous for the longest time, and it wasn't until the X takeover that I actually was able to. We had talked a little bit, but you had remained anonymous until I believe it was Ashley St. Clair revealed who you were. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you run on your X account, because I know you're just doing X exclusively.
Yeah, so I spent about 20 years doing software, 25 years doing software, and I stayed mostly off of social media, whatever. When I saw Elon was buying X, I was like, look, I got to get involved with this. I've been a fan of Tesla and Elon for a long time, and it just sort of continued to gain more and more momentum until it took over my whole life. And now all I ever do is follow Tesla, follow Elon, and post on X. So I post everything from supporting Tesla, supporting Elon, supporting Doge, to free speech and really whatever I feel like. But I'm on the internet 24/7 following this stuff, and I just love it.
And just to reiterate, we definitely blurred your face for this broadcast. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, you're safe.
The coming out was pretty awesome. I was actually in Austin for the Cybertruck release. And I went out to dinner. I met Doge designer Ashley St. Clair, a few other awesome people. It was a really great dinner. And Ashley had the idea to reveal my face on X. She did a video that ended up getting like 8 million views. So that was a hell of a face reveal.
Yeah, no, that was awesome, man. But yeah, no, it was great to meet you, and I love what you're doing for the community. I still remember, all of those amazing images you would create of like the future, and man, those were just iconic. So, but yeah, well, thank you, Penny, for joining us as a special guest this week. So we have him tagged on X and YouTube if you want to follow his X profile. But let's get into it. So we obviously have Penny here joining the podcast. So through his name, he's part of the FUD Fighters. All right. So, I don't think we need to go too deep in on this just because, again, I think most of our followers are long-term investors. But I do know like crypto and a lot of the stocks have taken a big hit this past week just with all of the tariffs and everything else going on. So there is a lot going on, but it did drop to about 372 this morning versus the 414 last week. But I don't know if the panel really has any thoughts on just what's happening in the economy high level right now. If they want to go into, we don't have to go deep in this, but I do know that there was a pretty stiff drop this past week.
I just think it's all sentiment driven, and Tesla investors are a little bit more optimistic perhaps than investors in some other companies. I don't know that next week we could have some unforeseen ripple that pulls the whole market down or drives it up. So I look at the fundamentals, and we've seen the long-term vision. We know what's coming next. And no matter how bad things get, this quarter. Are you worried? Because once we're past supervision, once we're unsupervised, none of these numbers in the automotive side matter. Once we're into bots, cars will be novel. Kids will be taught, hey, fun fact, did you know that Tesla started out as a car company? It's going to change. Everything's going to change. So over the short term, I'm not worried. Over the long term, I'm very excited.
Preach, man.
Yeah, what he said.
I remember just, gosh, it feels like a few months ago, I was below my average. My average is like 265. So to be sitting at 375 now, you know, sure, it's not 485, it's not 425, but I'll tell you, it's a lot better than we were not so long ago. And I'm just happy to be a part of the future.
Exactly. I mean, it's, I think when you think of Amazon, most kids today, probably when you talk to them, they have packages coming, at least, I'm going to speak specifically to California, but like, every day you just see these Amazon trucks going by and, you're getting packages dropped off. Do you think that half those kids remember that it started? They probably weren't even born yet, but they don't know that it was a bookstore.
Have their parents ever received a book from Amazon in physical form?
Crazy.
Yeah, that's just insane. Okay, so we'll get into this a little bit, but also too, some of you that may not have like watched it, we can also just kind of get your thoughts. But this video, we sat down with the lead vehicle engineer on the Model Y and the lead program manager on the Model Y. So I believe it was Emmanuel and Nathan. And they are just amazing. The fact that they sat down with our members, it was kind of a bummer. The weather was horrible, so we didn't get the big turnout that we wanted. I know Joe drove all the way down from Stockton, and he the weather was just bad. So, a lot of people were just saying it was bad. So, but we got some crazy insights that I think, we can kind of call out. And a shout out to Kim Java, because she actually went through the interview and she just actually created a whole list of like the key things from the interview. Yeah. And so I think the big things that I'll just call out, I might go into a couple more of these things, but I'll pass it over to Joe specifically because he was there. And then I don't know, Brian or Penny, you guys can go into it as well. But just some of the big things is like from a design standpoint, no Tesla logos, but China has a law where they have to add the T logo on. In-house designed gearbox for the rear seats. So they actually
it's crazy.
It's the fastest folding seat. So they literally were like, okay, here's the industry standard. They were like, that's great. They scraped that whole thing and they built their own from pretty much soup to nuts. And they were essentially able to get the fastest folding seats in the industry at 4 seconds. They also listened to customer feedback and brought back the turnstile, which also simplifies the buttons on the wheels. They were talking about how you pretty much would just have too many buttons, kind of like you have in the S and X right now. And obviously, as we know, this is the best-selling car in the world. So it's good that they're listening to that feedback. And we did hear that there are new colors coming to North America. I'm going to pass it to Joe again. Oh, and I think the other last breaking news was, I don't know exactly the configuration, but literally they had just heard from the EPA that the range was 5% better than the original estimate of 2.8 versus the previous version. So again, those were some of the tidbits. But Joe, what did you think, and what were the things you took out of it?
Yeah. So the Model Y is trash, you guys. This is unnews, if you will. No, I'm just kidding. So no, it was the way they spoke about it, and you could tell that they really love what they do. And I think like that kind of stuff like goes unnoticed when you're just seeing posts online and stuff like that. Like these are people who love the project, love what they're doing, and they are the heads of the team that's going to go around the whole world at each factory and make sure this thing spools up simultaneously at all the factories. So we caught them like randomly, like while they're taking their flights out to like everywhere. So it was pretty cool to talk to those guys and see the vehicle in person. Like I know not a lot of people have. We did the light show and all that stuff. It's pretty cool. But the attention to detail, I think, was pretty insane. Like how, like the one of the call outs they did was for the mirrors. Like there is an indentation on the mirrors to help with the efficiency, which I'm pretty sure added to that 5%. I think Sandy Monroe is well documented as saying if you remove the mirrors, you end up with a pretty great efficiency. And we just, in America, we just haven't done that yet. So, but no, there was a lot. It was really cool to see them talk about like the new hinges that they that they had made for the door to close properly and get that good thud and everything. And Nathan literally said that they've benchmarked it against some of the greatest German vehicles, and it is on par with what you would see anywhere else in the world. And I think that went a long way with the redesign, like enough, but not too much, so that they can keep this going at all the factories and keep the momentum going of being the best selling vehicle in the world. I know they were talking about how it still uses the batteries, the Model 3 batteries. It's not on the 4680s like across the board yet, and it doesn't have the structural pack. He mentioned that as well. So I think there's going to be some really cool things coming. I think it's going to help them be able to catch that momentum of being the best selling vehicle in the world.
Do you guys take the mirrors off of your Cybertrucks?
Yeah, mirrors are dumb.
I didn't know. I know that they talked about being able to move them or take them off of Cybertrucks, but in the wild, I wasn't sure if I had actually seen them with them removed yet. Is that something that people are doing?
Yeah. I did it. So did, I mean, there's a lot of people who have done it. I know that me and Bradford both did it. Like I did mine like right away, and it's super easy. There's like 3 bolts and the thing just pops right out. It's pretty awesome. It's really, you don't have to remove any of the door paneling or anything. It comes off super easy.
So on the Model Y, I got a chance to go out and check it out at one of the showrooms. I got to actually get in it and poke it and do all the everything but drive it. And yeah, there is a new little line on the mirror that just directs airflow because every little bit helps. You're not even going to get a whole percentage out of it. But if you ignore things that are under 1%, you're going to miss 5-10% efficiency. They don't do that. They got it. The turn stocks, I've seen people who have Model 3s, S, X, Cybertruck who say, seriously, we really don't need the turn stocks. I promise you. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the 3 to 5%, maybe 10% of people who really, really want them. If you've got the best selling car in the world, if you're moving millions of units over not very many years, you need to cater to that last 3 to 5%, or they're going to be, you don't need to turn them off over something that's $20. Let's not be crazy on that. On the range, well, you guys, it's only, I looked at the specs. It only has 8 more miles of range. No, it doesn't. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I didn't know that because we didn't have the actual data yet. We didn't see real world testing, but the engineer's confirming it. Right. It's the same as with the refresh Model 3. It on paper only has a very small bump in range. And then you get out real world testing and you're like, boy, this actually delivers. This is kind of what I hoped it would be. So that is a kind of improvement. The fact that it's benchmarked against good European cars doesn't surprise me. The Model 3 was the same thing. You saw Jason Camisa say the BMW M3 no longer needs to exist. It doesn't have a purpose because the Model 3 is so good. And I expect the same from the Juniper, from the Model Y Fresh. It checks all the boxes, all the little things you didn't like. Well, the cabin's a little too noisy. Yeah, we fixed that. Well, the range isn't. Yeah, we got that too. What else? It's a little bouncy. We fixed it. Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe the kids are bored. Fine. Second screen. Can we move on now? Yeah, let's move on. Let's get a Cybercab.
Penny, do you have any thoughts?
No, man. The new Model Y, first of all, I think it's beautiful. I don't know. I'm a little undecided on removing the Tesla logo or not. It does look clean in the photo on the deck. As far as replacing the M3 from BMW, that was my favorite car before Tesla. I absolutely love the M3. And you're right. I don't even look at it anymore. I don't even know what the specs are anymore. The 3 Series from Tesla, or the Model 3 from Tesla, is just too good. So that's a crazy thing to overtake.
I haven't seen the with and without pictures. So, and you said they're in the deck. So, Penny, if you want to send me deck pics later, that's always, my DMs are always open.
Some of the things that also just stuck out to me, like I guess right now in the current Model Y, the seatbelt is like in the back. So long story short, they essentially moved the seatbelt from the back to essentially in, I think, the seat itself. So they removed that. The other things that were just crazy is like they thought, and this is again what I think Brian, you were kind of mentioning, was where just all of the efficiencies. They talked about how they looked at like, okay, so when you open up the armrest, how long does the light stay on? How long, like when you close it, how much longer should it stay on? Like they thought of every little, they were saying milliwatt, like everything that you could think of. Then they also did say that they're going to turn it on later this year, but inside the new Model Y, there's, I think it's like a 4D sensor or something, but long story short, they can tell now height, width. They can essentially pretty much figure out who's in the car. Is this a similar person? Is there a kid in even the back row?
Weight. They said heart rate and everything could be. It's a 4D camera, a 4D radar.
Exactly. So it's just, you know, those are some of the crazy features that they threw in here, but they didn't disappoint. And I think as far as the design, whether you should have the Tesla logo or not, I thought when I first saw it, I was like, this literally looks like a cyber cab. Thankfully, the 3 and the Y don't look alike now, because now it looked like, you know, because otherwise it was like 2 different versions of the Toyota Corolla, I think is what was pissing people off. But I thought that the whole design and, you know, even the light bar, because the whole light bar is one piece in the back. It's literally like a 5-foot light bar. So I thought they did a really good job with it. So make sure, again, when you have time, it's 35 minutes, 20 minutes, just like 25 minutes of us just talking back and forth, and then we pretty much go out and do some Q&A with them as well. So I'm going to pass it to Joe.
Yeah, this is the Delaware governor. Wait, they don't love you like I. Okay, sorry. So this needed to happen. So they got a new governor. He's only been in a few weeks, and already he's like, yeah, that's not right. We got to make this right for Elon. And for him, even mentioning Elon, I think was like pretty crazy, because I bet Brian knows, but there's been a lot of companies that took off from Delaware, like big companies, not like small companies, but like huge companies left. It's been wild.
Didn't Meta just announce they're relocating their headquarters?
I think they're considering it. I don't know if it's official, but I think there's like Dropbox, a couple. I'm forgetting the name of the companies.
But the discussions are ongoing, and I think a lot of these companies are waiting to see where the other shoe falls, because there's going to be you can't override the will of the shareholders. And you can say the shareholders were duped once, but when they held the vote again after everyone had their gains, you know, you don't get to do it that way. And the vote came in within 1% of what it was before. A lot of the people who were voting the second time weren't even shareholders the first time. They were like, look, I wasn't a shareholder when the vote comp passed the first time, but I bought into the stock knowing exactly what the compensation plan was. And I even had a discussion with my wife about it. I said, look, this is crazy. He'd become the richest man in history, and we could pay off our house for almost no money. And that's, you know, a pretty reasonable, an easy discussion to make. Look at the analyst at the time who said this comp plan is crazy because the upside is insane, but the downside is like no one else in the business. I had people telling me, no, other CEOs take zero paycheck. I go, really? Who? They go, Steve Jobs. I go, got anyone from this century? Because I can't think of a second one.
Mic drop. Yeah, I mean, if not throwing money or not throwing shade at Lucid, but Pete Rawlinson, I mean, he had what, $280 million in the past 1 or 2 years,
for hitting performance metrics. What are the metrics?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah. Penny, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I've been, starting businesses since the late 90s. And the entire time, it wasn't even a question of where we're going to incorporate, right? It was always Delaware. That was like just unspoken. It's unbelievable that they've managed to blow it like this. And all over what appears to be a political or personal vendetta against Elon, right? I mean, that's what this whole case feels like to me. I'm so tired of the judge, the same judge that forced him to buy X or Twitter at the time is the same judge that was handling this case. Rubbing it in the shareholder faces twice in a row is unbelievable. I was shocked actually when she overturned it. I'm starting another business this month, and it's definitely not going to be in Delaware. They blew it. I watched the head of their whoever's in charge of the courts there, more or less having a fit trying to explain what's going on and really denying the dire situation that they're in right now. I'm glad to see that people are picking up on the fact that it is just not the right place to incorporate anymore.
The judge started the opinion with, first of all, no one should make that much money. Honey, it's not up to you. That's beyond the scope of your powers here. The fact that she started with that, to me, opens the door to an appeal on that alone. Are you basing this on legal precedent, or are you just big mad? I think we know the answer. We're all jealous. Some of us just express it in healthier ways.
Yeah, but you're looking at a guy who takes no days off. He's working like nonstop. This is a guy who could have retired 2 decades ago. You know what I mean? And been living on an island somewhere. And he works 7 days a week, like more hours than any of us put in a week. Like, well, probably not us because we're on this podcast and we do all the research. But I mean, that's crazy, man. Like, this is a guy who had no days off and does everything for all the companies he's in. And these are some of the greatest companies in all of the world doing some of the greatest work for all of humanity. And it's just wild to think that he gets treated that way. Like, when you look at what he's done.
Time off is valuable. I think time off is very important. I would love to have some at some point, but that's kind of not who I am. I've had people say, oh, well, when are your days off? That's not really how it works. And Penny will tell you, Penny does not get, Penny, I assume, works from wake till sleep every day. And, if I'm up in the middle of the night grabbing a snack, maybe I got to check what's going on. The microwave's going to give me 90 seconds. I'm going to use it. When was the last time Judge McCormick worked a weekend? I'm going to say it's been decades, if ever. So it's a different mindset. It's a different philosophy. And if you are the take a weekend type, that's good. I hope you're successful. Don't throw shade at those of us who work 7 days.
Yeah, and this is we don't need to dive in deeper, but one thing I will say is, when you look at the difference between people that are just working all the time versus, let's say, even government employees, there's a lot of stuff that, a whole government agency is pretty much being shut down on the weekend. When did people get on the mic to start complaining about it? They waited until they were back on the clock on Monday at 8 a.m. And so it's just, I think, Elon, shout out to 8 Sleep. They literally had pods sent to the department or to the White House area so that all of the people that are working for Doge could have a place to sleep because they're working 120 hours. But yeah, Elon, the way he works, when you think of Model 3 production hell, when you think of the Twitter, mega pain that he went through, that's what he's bringing to to Doge right now. And so you're seeing someone that is working insanely hard. And so when you look at his work ethic, I don't think we shouldn't be questioning whether he should get something that, we voted on in 2018 and then re-voted on in June of this year. And so this is a big wake up call, I think, to companies, because if they ever get into a situation where, like Tesla, where they need to get an obscene amount of their actual retail investors or even big investors to come vote, and yet a judge is still going to overturn it, no one's going to be thinking about Delaware again. And because what Tesla was able to do in this past shareholder meeting, they had to hit a certain percentage of votes from all of the retail and big institutions. But it's just what they were able to do was unheard of in shareholder meetings across for pretty much any U.S. company that is here on the New York Stock Exchange or that's publicly traded in the U.S. So I'm not surprised that Delaware's happening. I hope it just continues to send a message that don't mess with the builders, let them build.
Just real quick on that note, you guys probably all know Christopher Stanley. He used to work at SpaceX and now he's at X. He's working on Doge, and he put out a post like a week ago saying he's not used to sending an email on Friday and not getting a response till Monday. You work at Elon companies and that's just not the thing. But now that he's working in the government, that's what he has to get used to.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, 9 to 5, boy.
All right, so America's most valuable automaker. Again, specifically Brian has pretty much traveled all around the world just to investigate things. But, we know that Tesla is the most American-made car. A lot of their operations, a lot of the parts, a lot of the testing, even the battery packs are being made or assembled and integrated in the U.S. But, it's great to see Tesla being named top employer of choice. They have over 93,000 employees in the U.S. And who knows, this could continue to grow as they expand and even start with the robot. But all I can say is, I think at the end of the day, people are going to want to work at, where innovation and building is happening. And clearly Tesla has been a place to go to.
I mean, yes, these numbers are a little surprising. You think GM and Ford, you think big numbers in the U.S., and they just aren't. And well, how's that possible? Because their cars, a lot of them, the North American models, are made in Mexico or Canada, and a lot of their in-house parts that are made, like Ford, I think, has their V8 plant in Ontario. That's where their power plants come from. So there's a lot of misunderstanding there. And I think John is trying to be a little coy there because he said, well, that number could grow. And then he remembered Optimus and he's like, or it could shrink. It could shrink. And if you're sleeping on Optimus, you could miss an opportunity. You have to recognize what it is. Well, how come the big Wall Street guys haven't recognized it? They'll recognize it when it hits the bottom line. But even then they won't, because first it'll show up as a reduction in labor. And a reduction in labor, well, maybe you just skipped some bonuses. Maybe you just trimmed a couple of extra workers. No. This is the beginning of the tidewaters rising, and they will be unstoppable.
Yeah, it's we'll get into that soon. I know it's one of the slides, but Joe, I'll pass this to you.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild. You would think Texas would have this, but actually California sells the most trucks in North America.
That's crazy.
Well, I think it has to do with our agriculture, which I didn't realize. But for whatever reason, SoCal is a big proponent of California trucks.
We just like to look cool. That's it, man. I'm telling you, that's it. No one uses their trucks here.
But I mean, look at second place. Like, geez, Louise. Like, and these are a lot of these. Well, besides the Hummer EV, but a lot of these had a year's lead on production. And I mean, these are staggering numbers, man. Like, this is kind of. I would be lightweight upset if I was one of these companies who had like a 3-year lead on 4 years when it comes to R1T. But like, holy cow! Like, you had such a gigantic lead on production, and you can't even like match the numbers, and Cybertruck's already profitable. Like, yikes.
Do we know anything about those other trucks in terms of like, are there wait lists? Are they production constrained, or are they just not able to sell as many?
Worse. It's so much worse. The
It's
Lightning,
worse.
I looked it up a few days ago. There are thousands of them sitting on dealer lots. If you go to autotrader.com, do a nationwide search for new Lightning, you see there's like 3,000. Mach-E's, there's like 8 or 9,000. It is, there's only so much you can stuff the channel. A lot of people, oh, that's illegal, that's fraud. No, no, no. This is how auto accounting was always done. Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, they're the ones who bucked the trend by doing direct sales. When you see a Tesla sale, a Rivian sale, a Lucid sale, those are real customer sales. With the Fords being piled up at dealer lots, it means that's why we're seeing a weak Q1. Dealers are full. We're not taking any more. But what you will see is next quarter, maybe the quarter after, some very steep incentives to clear the lot because it gets ridiculous at some point. So they are not. Sandy Monroe is of the opinion that Ford is gross margin positive on most trims of the Lightning. But being gross margin positive doesn't mean you're making as much money as you would have on the truck that you didn't sell. Because when Ford sells a truck, they're not taking a sale away from Tesla. They're not taking a sale away from GM. They're taking a sale away from themselves. And they spent 20 years convincing their customers that electric cars were not going to work. And now they're trying to say,
Wow.
well, maybe they do. And it's a
What a
real
mic drop.
tough sell. That's why you bring me on, baby.
Yeah, exactly. You're on fire today, man. But yeah, no, it like, and also too, the way that the model works, if you're not familiar, right? Even when Ford sells the truck, it's going to a dealership lot. It's not like when Tesla sells a vehicle, it goes direct to the customer.
Right.
Or when it's when it literally drives itself from the production line to the shipping yard, it's going out to various states or various countries, wherever they're being made. But yeah, I mean, I have not driven I've been in both a Mach-E and the Lightning. I personally, to be honest, haven't driven them, but ultimately, in a lot of ways, I can say for the Ford Lightning, because when I've been in it, you're literally it's like you're taking a couple steps forward. But when you drive a Toyota Corolla to when you go into a Model 3, you're taking 1,000 steps forward. And so I think that's why the decision to buy a Model 3 it's such a different experience. It drives yourself. It's very safe. The cost of maintenance is like, cheaper than a Toyota Corolla over 5 years. So there's so many reasons, but when you potentially step into some of these other vehicles, it's not quite there yet. Like I think, and this isn't knocking Rivian, they make a great adventure truck. I think there's a lot of things on it that are better than even the Cybertruck, like, some of the things. But at the end of the day, it's like I have my Cybertruck. It literally drives me to work and back with 0 disengagements. I can, Joe's done close to 40,000, if not 40,000 plus miles. And
41,000.
41,000. And he had no FSD, 2 FSD. And again, Rivian has, what some of the lane changes, but it's different. You're still, if you're already into tech and you're going to buy a Rivian, you're going to definitely go look at a Cybertruck now. You know what I mean?
I had a chance about a year ago to drive a Lightning. A friend of mine had one. He let me drive it from Portland up to where I live. And city driving, highway driving, hands down, the best truck I had ever driven. Cybertruck is, of course, a much better experience, but Cybertruck doesn't feel like you're driving a truck. It feels like you're driving a car. He was able to lemon his Lightning back and get great full price. They just give you your money back, which was a real blessing because the depreciation on that thing was eye-watering. And he bought a Cyber Beast. And I said, why not long range? He said, because you get to do this once. I'm doing the Cyber. Okay, yep, fair. So he brought down the Cybertruck. I got to drive that. And the first thing I did was took it through the tightest drive-through in town I could think of to see how tight it feels. And of course, it just slides around the corner like nothing. It doesn't feel like you're driving a truck. So which would you rather have? Something that feels like the worst kind of car to drive, or something that feels like a good car to drive?
I drove a Cybertruck one time, and what blew me away was when I parked it. I was expecting to park like a truck. I had a Tacoma before I had my Model 3. The Cybertruck parks better than my Model 3. You like barely have to turn the wheel. And because it's got the 4-wheel steering, it just scoots right into the spot. It's insane.
I kept thinking, you're going to clip the curb. You're going to clip the curb. And the owners would always be like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. And no more of this with the steering wheel. When I get in my wife's Y, I'm like, wow.
Hard to starboard, Captain.
So wild.
So
we should mention before we forget that this summer in Alameda, California is going to be the X Takeover. Show of hands, who's going to be there? Exactly. The whole crew. Come out and join us, won't you? Tickets on sale now. Tell me you sent me. Tell John.
Exactly. And we actually we'll potentially share it at the end, but we just announced Steve Jurvenson, who is a SpaceX, and I believe he was a Tesla board member, but he invested early days in things like Hotmail, Skype, and then obviously now a lot of Elon's companies like SpaceX, Tesla, and Neuralink. So he's got, like, if you want to geek out on like the early days of like also a personal friend to Elon, this is going to be a great epic discussion. So more to come on that. Joe, I'll throw this one to you because I know this is your favorite topic.
Yeah, so there's jobs available. You imagine, like, well, I'll say this real quick. Like, imagine getting a job to work on Optimus just to be replaced by Optimus. But yeah, no, they're hiring. They're hiring. I mean, you got like years before you're going to be out of work, but yeah, they're hiring for I mean, there's some crazy manufacturing things, and I honestly thought they were gonna make Optimus in Texas. They have so much space. Like, anybody who's done a factory tour in Fremont, there's not enough space for this, but they're gonna do like 10,000 bots out of here this year. So this is like insane that they're gonna do this, and it's pretty cool to see like some of the analysts, like, well, it's ARC, of course, they get it, but it's good to see Herbert had that interview and them realizing like what's going to happen. I mean, he was very adamant about trying to reach that 10,000 this year and 100,000 next year. Like, it's just going to get nutty. The numbers get crazy when you try to model it out, but even thinking about it is bizarro.
One way to think about it is, we talked earlier about how many employees Tesla has in the United States, and it was like 95,000 or whatever, right? 10,000 bots. That means 10% of their workforce could potentially be robots this year, and half of their workforce, if they're not getting rid of, or selling some of these, but they'll have 100,000 bots in their factories next year. That's insane. I think what you mentioned about Fremont is actually kind of important, right? It will not take as much floor space to manufacture these. They don't need the giant machines. They're not gigacasting entire bodies, right? Like, the biggest part on Optimus is probably not a whole lot bigger than a shoebox. So once they do start pumping these out, man, it's just going to be fire. I cannot wait for them to go on sale. If they would allow me, I would literally get on the list for as many as they'll sell me. Like, if you sell me 100, I'll buy 100. You sell me 1,000, I will find a way to finance those and put them to work.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at waiting probably until, let's say, 2025, 2026, they're going to be in the factories. And then 2027, they'll probably go outward and sell to other warehouses. So you're probably looking at 2029, 2030 before it's like people.
Yeah,
except how much will they ramp when if you can see this infinite demand, you're going to just start spooling up factories everywhere to make these, because what is the bottleneck at that point? I guess the question is, how many chips can you get? How many chips can TSMC make? And the answer is likely millions, surely millions. So that's not the bottleneck. The amount of batteries it requires is almost none compared to a car. Skip one car, you can build 100 bots. So I don't see a bottleneck.
Is it really 100-to-1 on bot to car battery size?
No, it's not. But it is like probably 70-to-1. It is, no, even that's too high. It's probably more like 10-to-1, but still. It's probably 7 kilowatt hours, don't you think? Or less?
Yeah, I
don't-
would think I would think under 10. There's no way they would need
yeah.
that much.
So 10 to 1. But even still, that's, or let's compare it to the semi then. Let's get crazy. But
No,
yeah.
you know what? It's got to be less than that because even the Powerwall is huge, and that's 13.
Oh, yeah.
So it's got to be way less.
It's got to be way less.
Probably way
So,
than a Powerwall.
In the chat, tell us.
it's
Yeah,
got to
and
be half, like 7.
one of the
Less.
things too is depending on what each bot will be used for. I mean, I don't know if they're going to make variations, or I would assume so. But either way, like depending on the tasks, like even if you had like a battery this half the size of the new power walls, these things can also just go and charge themselves, right? So you can literally
Right.
have a 24-hour shift going. They know how to go navigate, and they'll create their version of a supercharger for these bots. One thing I was going to say is that I think Brian, it was you that mentioned is that, or even Penny, it's that it's not going to take up much space for them to build them.
Yeah,
And
that
so what's
footprint.
going to happen? I mean, we hung out with the engineers, and actually I was looking at some of the job listings, and it all just reminds me of how they set up every single team, right? They always have like a lead vehicle engineer, a program manager, like just there. So this is the full suite of like when they probably launch a new product, these are the people that they need to make sure that they line up. But all I can say is once they nail down and get close to the design, and we know that this design is going to change 50 billion times over until final release. But what's going to happen is once they get close to that, they're then going to go replicate that in Shanghai and Austin. Who knows? Maybe they'll even get Nevada running up, Berlin, all of these. And one thing that, the engineers were talking about is that every region, because now they have, 4 big factories to build things, they can become region specific to what is allowed and not allowed there. And they start to kind of divorce themselves. It's like you have like 90% of it is going to be made this way, and then the remaining 10% is maybe due to regulations and some of this other stuff. But all I'm trying to say is that, they've built these type of products before, as far as, building robots, which is like our cars. But once they get that down, they're going to then go replicate it. And one thing we saw with these engineers, they were literally, they had a couple of days in between their trips that they've been on to get the Model Y up and up running. As far as the 4 gigafactories, one of them just got back from Berlin. They're going to Austin tomorrow, and then Shanghai the following week. So it's just like they're very hands-on. They're going to make sure that every factory is up and running efficiently, and wherever they built the first production line, whether it was Shanghai or the US or whatever, they're taking that and then going and making sure that it works everywhere. So it's really exciting. I mean, this is the nod that we all needed, and the validation that we knew that they were going to do this, but them turning this on means that it's go time.
Yeah, the in the chat, Gary says it's 2.5 kilowatt hours for robots typically. So that's kind of crazy how many.
Yeah, that's crazy.
40
Is that
per
enough to
Model
run all
S.
day?
Yeah,
I mean, even
40.
if you double that, that's 5, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You start running into weight though, but yes, how much movement is it doing? If it's jogging, obviously you're only going to get, a little
Yeah,
bit of time.
but moving around the house, you're not going to run through that. It run for hours before we even need a charge. That's crazy to think about.
And anytime it's doing stationary work, it can top off.
That's a good point.
Sheesh.
All right. So lease cost for the Cybertruck is down to $750 a month. And so again, Tesla's continuing to make it more and more affordable to get into the Cybertruck. And I believe the all-wheel drive also gets the federal tax credit as well. So obviously, we'll see how potentially the China tariffs or some of these other tariffs that are coming will impact that. But it's definitely a lot more affordable than it was for the Foundation series to jump into this.
If you're in California, you could get us to 50% total EV truck market share. We're at 45% right now. So yeah, just breaking news: Joe Tetmeyer just released footage of multiple colors of Cybercab on the factory in Austin. So they are not messing around.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Joe, I'll pass this one back to you.
New Megapack service facility. So this is pretty cool. Australia is like, I think they had the biggest initially anyways, but I mean, they have a lot of land, of course. I mean, people to land ratio in Australia is like nutty. But so they're making a service facility for the Megapacks out there. And this is like, I mean, look at 560 megawatts. I mean, these are crazy numbers, man. It's pretty wild. Brian, do you know anything about this? Have you heard anything?
So on this one in particular, no. Western Australia is where the first big Megapack was. We'd seen the Megapack announcement maybe the year before. And then when Western Australia was looking to add a power system, they went out to bid, and Tesla did not come in as the lowest bidder. What they said was 90 days or it's free. Or maybe it was 100 days or it's free. It was one of the two. And that is a deal too good to pass up. And of course, they did get it turned on, electrified in time. And since then, they've proved that they have the best software, the best management, the best system that's available at any price. And it's not prohibitively expensive. It is more than a lot of the competition because it can be. And so they've since doubled the size of that particular location. It paid for itself in something like 6 or 12 months, despite costing an estimated $100 million. And in Australia, we keep seeing these going in over and over. And the 560 megawatts is actually not that big anymore. There's one that big going in Japan. It's only like $100 million now, 200 maybe. It is quite affordable because once you get over a handful of megapacks, the sticker price is a little more negotiable. They've proven that you can cookie cutter these operations and just make them work. So it's not every single time it's bespoke. You let the people on the ground deal with the permitting and the grid connection, and you just make it happen. So these are a real cash cow. They're real easy to make. You've seen the factories. Joe, you've seen how quickly Lathrop went up. It was 6 months. It was done. Giga Shanghai for the Megapack Shanghai factory was up and running in 5 months. They are very, very quick because it's a very easy factory and it just prints money.
Yeah, and this is the path forward. I know people like to talk about like, oh, we don't have the electrical grid in America, and I'll urge you to remember that we used to light things with candles and not even drive vehicles, and the world is functioning just fine with all the cars and companies and buildings that we made on top of it. But besides that, like these are the path forward. Like you have stationary storage and solar panels. Like, I mean, there's just you're especially with AI and these type of things that are going to need energy. Like you're looking at a really, really productive like loop. You know what I mean, for energy loop for all of this. It's pretty crazy.
Well, the grid can't handle it, you guys. More cars will make it worse. You know, California's got blackouts, brownouts, rolling blackouts, all of that. No. It's about, can you anticipate it? There are more EVs in California than there were 4 years ago and fewer power issues. So it was never about the cars. You know how on Thanksgiving you get that emergency warning, guys, don't all cook your turkeys at the same time. Of course not, because that's not a thing. They anticipate it and you just make it work.
Yeah. I think the big thing is that even more so than the bots charging, the EVs charging, look at AI. What is AI doing, and how do you keep those freaking GPUs running? So the future is, and obviously they typically put these huge like data centers kind of outside of like bigger cities and stuff like that. But more importantly, with AI ramping and being able to have enough energy to support them, like they're going to be way more prepared or they should be way more prepared for the energy needs and being able to project that. Because, I mean, energy usage is going to go up 1,000x over the next couple of years. And again, I'm just throwing out random numbers, but to be able to, not only, charge cars, use your houses, but just to be able to make sure that the robots, EVs, all that stuff, and more importantly, AI GPUs to make sure that can compute real time. Like you need to be able to power all of that. So I would assume probably California is not preparing for that, just knowing the way things work here. But all these other states, like where the XAI, like Tennessee and some of these other places, they're seeing the impact of energy that it's going to have, and that is going to become a model for all these other GPU data centers, right?
GPUs are thirsty. They get those things burned so hot you could cook an egg. And I can't afford a GPU. I just bought an egg.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nuke plants and batteries, baby.
Exactly. So this happened last night. We didn't put the numbers up, but your Model X has increased by about $5,000. It is no longer available for the tax credit, the federal tax credit. I want to go to the panel on potentially like, why there was this increase, but either way, free supercharging does come with it for US, Canada, Puerto Rico, Europe, and the Middle East. But I was actually a little bit surprised, but also too, I know that, there's a lot happening in the world right now that Tesla probably has a pulse on. But what did you guys think about this price raise?
I think they know who their customers are, and they've seen what percentage of them are actually using the credit. And if Model S and X buyers are people who already don't qualify for it, if we're only talking about losing 1-2%, hey, let's bundle in these other things that they actually want. Let them be able to finance or lease that, not have to pay for it, not have to think about it, move that expense to a different category. It could work out, is my thought.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's not going to change the number of units that they push very much. And they're probably trying to reach a certain amount of profit per square foot in the factories, right? Like, how valuable is this model to Tesla, really? How many do they sell compared to Model Ys? What's the profit margin and all of that? I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, look, at some point, I think Tesla is going to own most of the cars that they create. They're all going to be cybercabs and they'll be running on a network. I think they could be weaning us off of the Model X, but I guess we'll see.
Definitely. Okay, so we've all seen this before. It just, I think legacy auto and really just governments not wanting change to happen. So South Carolina is finally potentially or could finally get direct to consumer. And then, one of the other things too, I just saw, there's a union in Sweden that continues to put on strikes because, again, they see what Tesla's doing, the business model that they're doing, and it changes the game. Even from a workforce perspective, why do you think they're throwing all these strikes? But, I think at the end of the day, innovation is going to win out, and these over regulations are going to continue to lose as time goes on.
Yeah. So Tesla becomes the beneficiary of what's happening in South Carolina with Rivian, and everybody else will also whoever's in South Carolina. But that's because there's a factory going, and Rivian's like, hey, like, come on, it's what should have happened in Texas. But
absolutely,
here we are.
So here, I got ahead of myself. So here are the new prices. Just want to flash that up: 85,000 for long range, 100,000 for the Plaid. Joe, I'll pass this one to you. You're on mute.
I think this was inevitable. You know what I mean? Like looking at all of this, but I mean, this is our speculation slide. So we don't know for sure if it's Tesla, but of course it more than likely is. And as far as Nikola Motors, I mean, that's a tale in itself. It just keeps unwinding. It's very, very interesting.
Was awesome. That was like peak COVID. I feel like it's literally having like Tesla influencers sitting with one of the biggest fraud companies, kind of like since like, what is it? I'm forgetting her name, Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah.
Like just straight up. And I remember there was this iconic photo of Omar just going like this with Trevor Milton in the back, like, but all of these stocks had just been so hyped, and I remember. But yeah, I thought any thoughts?
Well, anything that's not Elon, right? Like that's usually what happens. Anything that's not Elon, they're like, oh, cool, we can throw our money at this. I mean, you've seen it like just in the past like few weeks, like all these announcements, we're going to work with Honda and we're going to build this and we're going to build, and then like after everybody kind of forgets a year later, it's like, actually, we're not doing that. We're not doing any of those things. And so like people just forget, like there's all this like hype and fraud that happens with all these other companies while claiming that Elon's doing all this hype and fraud when he's actually making the products and making the vehicles, and there's no fraud. It's like literally happening. And like nobody gets called out for, like Mary Barr's not getting called out for all the things that she announced with the other companies that they aren't actually going into business with, and they aren't producing all these, what was it, the Ultium battery packs, and it's just it's bizarro land.
Remember when the Cybertruck was a fraud?
Yes.
The Cybertruck was a fraud. They weren't going to build a factory in China. It just wasn't going to happen.
Mudfield. No, when it was about 2 years ago, GM held an investor day where they had these great pictures of their new skateboard design and Ultium and all that. The Ultium means it's the last. No, it's not even the penultium. It's the one before that. This is a joke. And even then I looked at it. I made a whole video about it saying, this is a joke. This is not real. These projections don't make sense. This timeline doesn't make sense. They would have to have already started for this to be in the works. And I know people there. It hasn't started. Where's the SEC investigation? This is called Investor Day. This is material impact statement BS. Why is there no outrage? And here we are, of course, 2 years later, and like, well, actually soon we'll be doing that. Are you? Because I've been waiting, and if the Cybertruck is a fraud, and by the way, I saw a picture of a Cybertruck the other day, but I can't tell because all cars look the same. Well, maybe not that one quite so much. So I don't know where all that nonsense comes from. Nicola, I had angry investors because I would cover it extensively, because to me, it was the most transparently ridiculous thing. You had companies like you guys were just saying, hyping each other. You had GM and Nicola both relying on the other party to bring the tech and the money. That doesn't. Did you do any due diligence? Same with Lordstown. Same with a lot of these companies where they just announce partnerships and, yeah, that should be good. Who knows? I probably won't be here by the time any of this materializes. So, yeah. And when I'm announcing, when I do coverage of newer, smaller companies, invariably investors in that company show up furious, livid. How dare you? You misunderstand. You're a fanboyish shill for somebody else. Look, I've not missed yet. It's entirely possible that the next one I say has got material issues that will impact their survivability. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know, man. When you're investing, you got to zoom out and look at the whole picture, or you could be blinded.
Agreed, 100%. So we're at the top of the hour. I know, we have a whole upbeat that we could have gotten into, but I just want to flash up the takeover again. We have Steve Jurvenson coming as our keynote, and more speakers. Hopefully, we can land. We're always working and scheming on something. But Steve, a little bit about him. He's a prominent venture capitalist, best known for his early day investments, again, in Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink. So go to X Takeover, check it out. But yeah, I just want to do a quick thank you to our special guest, Penny. Most of you probably already know who he is, but if you haven't, he's tagged on X for the podcast. So please give him a follow. He's got a great sense of humor, and actually, you just launched the podcast yourself, right? Tech and Tea.
Yeah, Tech and Tea, working with Wolf Financial. We just recorded our first episode yesterday, trying to get into doing more video content. My favorite stuff is interviews. I just absolutely love doing interviews, but getting my face on camera doing these podcasts is a lot of fun too.
Definitely.
Oh, Mr. I love my face out there now, guy.
I know, right? From anonymous to get me out there. I'm trying to be famous now.
Exactly. And then thank you again to both Joe and Brian. You guys provide such amazing commentary. And so please make sure you give them a follow. But yeah, we will catch you guys all up next Friday. Again, have a great week and stay safe this weekend. We'll see you.